Hey, good morning, Grace Church. So good to be with you again. Thanks for taking the time to join us for another staff devotional. Last week I enjoyed a really quiet time away. I was again at our friend's cottage on Lake Erie, but this time I was by myself on a bit of a personal retreat. And it was just wonderful to spend time just reading and praying and enjoying God's beautiful creation, going for walks and just resting. And so I really appreciated that time. You know, in my devotions, I've been going through one proverb a day, lining up with, of course, each day of the month. And so while I was away, I was reading from Proverbs in chapter 10. And it's interesting, one of the themes that I noticed in Proverbs specifically that is often talked about is a reference to our tongue and our words and the things that come out of our mouth. And it got me thinking about how important it is for us as followers of Jesus to guard our words. This is the reference in Proverbs 10, verse 19, where it says, "When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent." What a great passage. You know, the Bible warns us about guarding our tongue because words can hurt. They can do a lot of damage to relationships. They can severely hinder our testimony, the things that we say. And it can really also wound people that we love and we respect. James actually, in the book of James, uses some pretty harsh language when it comes to our tongues. Listen to what he says in chapter 3, verse 6. He says, "And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell." Wow, those are some pretty strong words. And then he warns us a few verses later, "But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God." Wow. That's why, the Apostle Paul teaches us about being careful about what comes out of our mouth. I've memorized this passage in Ephesians 4, and verse 29 says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths," or the NIV says, "Let no unwholesome words come out of your mouth, but only such as good for building up others, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." That's what we want our words to be filled with grace to those who hear us. Well, how do we do that? Well, we go back to the book of James. In chapter 1, verse 19, James says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to be angry." Slow to anger. Essentially what James is saying is, listen more, talk less. There's many proverbs that kind of reinforce that principle as well. Here's a few. Proverbs 13:3, "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin." Proverbs 15:1, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And then Proverbs 17:27, "Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding." The psalmist knew that it's hard for us as sinful humans to control our tongues, and that's why we actually need God's help in order to do it. In Psalm 141, verse 3, the psalmist says, "Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips." And so I think we need to be praying that God's Spirit would truly give us the self-control to guard what comes out of our mouth. Jesus actually gives us quite a sobering warning in Matthew chapter 12. Listen to what he says in verse 36 and 37. "I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Wow, that is quite the warning for us as followers of Jesus in thinking about what words come out of our mouth. And so as we go through our week, let's be mindful of the things that we say. Let's be careful about the words that come out of our mouth. And let's follow the example that Jesus gave for us, that Peter talks about in 1 Peter 2, verse 21 to 23. He says, "For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. He committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly." Jesus demonstrated for us the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to be silent. And he always spoke the truth. May that be the example that we follow as well. Let me end today with these words from the Apostle Paul in Colossians 4:6. He says, "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." I hope that encourages you today. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you again next time.